Hi, I'm Matt from HockeyReviews.ca, and this is the Bauer Hyperlite 2 Digiprint custom set unboxing / snapshot review. So this isn't a full review, obviously, and this is kind of out of sequence, but doing these videos, I don't really have to edit anything. I could just throw it all together, and it uploads pretty quick, as well as, unfortunately, this is the gear that everyone's talking about right now all over the place. So, but throwing this content out there will probably, unfortunately, get more views than the full review will, but without using these, I can't really say much, but we're going to talk about the set really quickly, go over it, some of the specs and the features on there. There is one thing wrong with this Digiprint piece here. I'm not going to call it out, but if someone calls it out in the comments, you get a virtual cookie. First of all, this set, well, it's only possible because of the help with Just Hockey, so make sure you check them in the description. Check out to their website, buy something from them, tell them from Hockey Reviews. It'd be greatly appreciated, and lets them know that me making, like them working with me, making content like this is helpful for them. This is my second full Digiprint set. I did the ultrasonic set way back when. That's were XLs as well, but they screwed up this stiffness on them, and then they sent me Hyperlites, and they ended up being just too small for me. I ordered larger just because I knew I wanted to try something on them. They were too small, and I don't have that set anymore. I moved on from it. So we have this set right here, and yes, this is based on the iTech. I think it's Prodigy 9.8, so it's iTech Prodigies anyways. This is specifically from the DiPietro sets that he had it when the Islanders. You can see the faux like little ridges and stuff on there. My team is called the Stars. You should see the bunch of gameplay footage from. They have Dallas Stars old school 90s jerseys. This is in like early 2000s. This obviously matches that setup, and I liked this graphic, and the Stars stuff was pretty nice from DiPietro's, and I thought it matched pretty well. And originally I wanted to do an X-Wing graphic, but I don't like doing graphics that like NHL goalies end up doing. I kind of want to do my own thing on graphics and stuff like that. So I originally was going to do the X-Wing graphic, but Hunter Miska took that. I was going to do the Byron Defoe graphic, but then Allmark did that this year for Winter Classic. So I was like, So I went with this route, which is kind of Mandalorian-esque, but is pretty cool in that sense altogether. So for specs on this pad, this is an XL, which is obviously Bauer's like 36+1, but sizing on gear has gotten really weird recently, and this will be a pretty decent example. This right here is a 34 +2 true PX3, and you can see the boots are like kind of sitting the same way, but how the boot sits on your skate and everything is obviously different. But you can see how a 34 +2 is bigger than a 36 +1. Also, we switched this around and look at the knee block difference too, which is crazy. So obviously this sizing isn't a direct one-to-one, so don't take this as a sizing thing. I'm just comparing this compared to some of my other pads, because people will be like, how do you fit a 36 or an XL Bauer? I don't know with this boot yet, we'll see, but previously I always fit XL Bauers, and doing that, going down to a 34 in true is pretty nuts, but I want to kind of show that off as a comparison thing. So specs on this, this is like a pretty straight up Hyperlite whole set, as I should say Hyperlite 2 set, I guess. But I have the X Stiff thigh rise here compared to, I think the Hyperlite 2 is the soft or something, I'm not sure. But we'll take a look at some of the things here really quickly to get you an idea of how this setup is. So the boot is super soft still, and like one of the softer boot feelings there are, but super thin, which we'll show off in a second. And this whole side profile is all kind of changed in terms of like there's no binding, and it's really clean kind of all through the whole thing, so it's pretty interesting in that sense. But super soft boot. And then thigh rise stiffness. This is the stiffest set of pads I have and I've ever worn. Well, I should say my Hyperlite ones were probably as stiff as this because they were the X Stiff, but you can see there's like no break here, right? There's like no bend anywhere here, so it's pretty impressive. These are going to do really, really well in the thigh rise test. So that would be kind of cool there. And they're super straight, which is what I really, really like in my pads. Now, before we begin all that, Core Tech, which are Core shorts, and people have heard of these before. They were labeled under Under Armour before. Now Bauer sells hockey specific one, but Core themselves sell their own line of pants and supportive clothing and apparel. Basically, this stuff helps you with growing strains, growing pulls, and helps keep your hips tight and everything like that. And speaking of injuries, I kind of pulled a growing playing in the playoffs a few months ago and have had to keep using these Core Tech shorts to make sure my growing doesn't get worse. When I don't wear them, I can feel it and it hurts kind of to walk the next day. With these, keeps everything nice and tight and keeps everything from stretching out too far and getting injured. So these have been a huge savior for me. Check out the link in the description to their website and use my coupon code that's in there to get a discount, and I'll put it on the screen here. It helps support myself and the channel so I can make content and doing real reviews, but also you get a solid product that I use all the time and basically am needed in order to keep my growing from falling apart. Otherwise, if you want to support the channel without buying anything, check out the links in the description to Patreon and buy me a coffee. Everything through those links always comes back into the channel so I can keep making more content and doing more reviews. So we'll continue on the pads before we move on to anything else, and you can see kind of the graphic on here. Unfortunately, these aren't, like, I can't get that interesting little bumps and embossing or whatever it is off from the Hyperlite 2 set, but we have this here, and you can kind of see the graphic details in them, which I absolutely love, as well as just the Bauer logo, which is always that little printed thing on there, which it still happens there too, so I'm a huge fan of that, as well as the Hyperlite in there. So looking on the side, and again, I haven't worn these, so I can't say crazy stuff about them. They're super thin all throughout though. So this is a lot thinner than what the Supreme one is. And this side even looks thicker because it still has that roll, which I'm a huge fan of. They still have like that full size roll. So this is super thin all through here. And the boot is also extremely thin, and they got rid of the binding on this side, which is pretty cool as well. And you can kind of see how soft that boot is too, which is pretty impressive with how thin this is. And we go on the other side. Also, just to call this out because people will say it, these dents are basically through the cords on the back, kind of pulling it in. So there'll be cords back here, like these pieces. Well, see on camera, like those little white pieces in there that end up pulling here, and that's why the face gets like dents like that. It's right there, and you can see it up here as well. Now we'll go on this inner edge, and it's kind of pretty standard for Bauer stuff here. You do have this binding right here, which I still wish they got rid of. I would have preferred this edge to be bindingless and the other one to be binding, so this kind of goes away. But generally speaking, this isn't the worst like wear for sliding spots, and you can see just how that kind of block works. And this is the Stability Flex, which has that flex right there going that way, but is still super stiff going out. We'll talk about that in 1 second. Still very tiny right here, and you have this calf wing that does have this binding through here, and you have the 3D kind of shape, which I'm kind of disappointed this has, because this one's okay. It's not crazy like the mock though. You can also see this is kind of where that gap happens for the NHL thing, where these can't be the same kind of plane, so it's kind of sewn in a little bit as well. You can see that 3D shape to get a little bit more flatness and surface area on there, so it flattens out this, so it kind of flattens out when you push on it, and the knee kind of more stability and everything going right there. Binding here, which is still a really sad thing. Like this really should be pulled in somehow or covered with this. I don't know why Bauer keeps doing this. Is always a point that wears a bit on my pads, and Bauer just keeps doing it, so it's weird. Like this could easily just keep going up here, and it would be a better wear part than what this is, but hey. And then you have a wear patch on this piece because this is like kind of the seam of here, and it helps protect everything here, because there's always been issues with the boots and everything on there as well. While we're talking about that boot, I don't know if this is like the reinforced one. They talked, or people always say their stuff breaks all the time, but you can see these interesting little lines right here and kind of right here. So I don't know if that's another layer underneath to hopefully reinforce that or what. But people always talk about boot cracks on these. I've never experienced it personally. People show pictures of them, but a lot of times they're used a lot by like OHL guys and like junior players who play all the time, play for like legit teams constantly, and that's where the wear down comes. Anyways, moving on to the toe, more of that binding all the way through that stops right there for extra wear. And you have their toe ties, which are just like, they're not the monster ones anymore. They're actually a much nicer material and design overall, and you have two options for on normal and offset. I'm probably going to switch this to offset just because a few of my pads right now have offsets on, just to make it more like the same for all of them, and just to make it a little more consistent. Looking at the boot, we have a pretty flat boot design, as you can see, very, very flat overall, with like no little channel in here whatsoever. From what I remember, my Hyperlite ones, which I'm going to try to get back so I can do a comparison review later on, has a little bit more of a channel than this, but this is super flat and super tiny. So interesting to see how this fits me overall, because of a lot of pads with the flatter boot channels are having issues. Well, they end up fitting bigger. So like before with CCM Lefebvre, I was a 35, now I'm a 34. So interesting to see what happens here. I put this boot strap in, which is an option, and this is an elastic one, as you can see, and it attaches right here, as you can see, and it goes through right here. And same exact connection as the other ones do. This is removable, unlike CCM's, which is really nice. And this tab kind of fits in here, so if you want to add the boot strap yourself, you can just pull it out. So same design as previously, which is kind of nice. They all work together. You can keep using the other ones. The only reason I put this in here, I will take this boot strap out when I actually play with it, and it just takes out just by going like this, because I use this to carry my pad. So I'll put a pad strap attached to it, and like even like this, and just tie them together. That way I can carry my pads easier. I don't have to put them in a bag or anything like that. So it's nicer in that sense. So looking at the strapping, since we can see it right away, there's no more kind of calf wing to strapping piece over here. Instead, it's this lower piece, which is removable and adjustable. So it does have that Velcro strap right here that can go up and down, and I'm going to keep that pretty loose because I like my pads loose in that sense. And it goes over here to the outer calf wing, which we'll talk about the materials and stuff in a second. Then you have their internal set right here. This is their Tune Fit Strap 2.0, as you can see right here, and it's just a piece right here, and it attaches here. I hated this strap for my Hyperlite ones. It was always too tight no matter what. This is also on like the loosest setting, and it's still, I can feel it being too tight. You can really crank that down, but I don't know whose leg is going to fit in this, to be honest. But for me, who has kind of chunky legs compared to whoever these are made for, I'm going to probably take this out right away because I want these pads fitting as loose as possible. And even if I could like do this, which I might actually prefer the feel of, this, I feel like this might be a little too tight. So we'll see how that goes, and I'll like report back on how it is. I don't like how this inner piece right here is not removable. I wish it had just a tie in here so I could pull it out, because if I don't use this strap, it's going to be sitting there, and I know eventually it's going to fold in and just be kind of annoying. So now we have the Hyperlite 1 style of Professor strap. This is also called like the Tune Fit Connect or whatever, and you can see it right here. This is much better than the Supreme one that was originally there. This is padded and actually like a decent amount of Velcro on here to hold it in place so it shouldn't come out. But I'm going to take this out right now because I never use these, and I absolutely hate this style of strap because I don't have to wear NHL pads and NHL legal pads, so I don't have to wear a smaller size and then pull them up this way. I can just wear a bigger size and have them fit the way I want to with the thigh rise I want to, so that goes out of there. Then we have the knee one, which we'll cover in 1 second because we're going to keep down on here. The pillow that is kind of in here is sort of still here with this, but it's not really in there all that much. So you do see that little bit of pillow to help kind of push that down and flatten that out all the way, but it's nothing crazy. And then you have this elastic strap holding here. I would like to kind of open this and show off more because you can see the materials in here and everything, but you can't because this is kind of holding it in place. So this pillow, I'm kind of happy it's here, but at the same time, I really feel like Bauer, especially for retail, like I've seen the NHL goalies that have the massive pillows kind of put right here. I wish that was here as well. This one is much smaller, and I kind of wish they did that to really differentiate the two lines, but they didn't. And like this entire piece right here is a little bit tighter than mock, but not really. Like this all fits pretty similar. And this really isn't a channel, it's really just flat. So would be nice to see that, but it isn't there. Going on to materials inside here, which are all just this nylon. Bauer has used like interesting materials in the past and like softer materials. This is all just their, honestly, it feels pretty durable, but it's kind of, it feels a little bit cheaper than what they used to use in here. It's just a nylon all the way throughout with some, and you even don't even have like wear guards down here anymore, which is kind of sad. It's just, there's some Gen Pro down here, but that is it. Gen Pro on this side as well for sliding on the ice, but kind of lost some of those wear points, which is kind of disappointing. So we'll see how those hold up. I love this material still though. This is like their Aerolite foam or whatever it's called. I can't remember, but it is just the foam on the outside, and it's like the molded foam instead of using like a nylon and foams on the inside. So I really like that. I'm not a huge fan of the lack of Velcro here though. It's only one here and one here. Obviously that's for the knee, but previous, like the 2X Pro, which I think was like the best iteration of these pads, all that kind of came down here so you could really adjust it, and it was great. This one I think is kind of lacking a little bit in that adjustment piece. Going on to this knee block, this is the Stability Flex knee block, which I talked about, and you can see how it is pretty firm in there. It's not as firm as the other like mock Supreme line, but it is very firm. And one thing to call out, because I almost forgot it, I did not get extra piece in here, so this would be more rigid. I found that I hated that feeling of the mock of this being like solid in place. I like this moving a bit with your leg, just because this part, it can kind of be the solid piece and this one can move a bit. But honestly, if I had my way and I wasn't doing like reviews of gear, I wouldn't get this solid in here either. I find it causes some more problems than really stability things it creates. You can do stability stuff with other parts of the pad. Overall, this is kind of just annoying to me at some things and kind of gets in the way of some things, so I would have preferred this to be a bit more movable if I had my ultimate goal. But you do have this adjustable piece right here, and this is at least adjustable so you can tighten this a bit more, but this still should be more Velcro on here so you can really tighten this. I'm gonna have to figure out how tight I need this on my pads, because this is how I always do my pads out there, knee to there, so it doesn't, I don't fall out the top of the block and hold it in place. Now with this knee block, interesting, this is on like an angle now, as you can see. It used to not be like that. And the other interesting part is this grip material. So this is like a rubbery type grip texture. So not using the Sure Grip material that they used in the past, but it's like a more grippy than what that material is. So pretty interesting on here, and see how that feels. And you can see still, which I love, is how you can pull this back and you can see that it looks like styrofoam. I'm trying to get this on camera really good though. That white looks like styrofoam, but it's their material. It's not actually styrofoam. It's just a foam that kind of looks like it, but it's in there. So it's kind of cool. You can take a look at that as well. Removable outer wing right here too. And this before I think used to be a molded foam. It's not. Aerolite, that's what that foam was called. Anyways, this used to be, I think, a molded foam. It's not anymore. Just sits kind of in there. I wish it was more adjustable so you can move it around. It's not. It's very basic, very plain, but it's not the worst thing ever and not the end of the world. Overall, stability on this pad feels very good. Doesn't move a whole ton. It jerks a little bit on here, but this table isn't the flattest. So once I really put this on the ground, it feels pretty stable and everything. I'm very interested to try this pad out and use it. I'll obviously report back and do a full review on this whole set, but I want to give a quick look at this set to begin with. I've been a huge fan of Bauer pads for a while, and 2X Pros are one of my favorite pads they've ever done. Hyperlite 2s or Hyperlite 1s were kind of okay, but I really feel like Bauer hasn't done anything crazy with their pads for a while. I really feel like that 2X Pro set was kind of like the peak. Yes, this piece people really like for the stability block and stuff. I've seen issues with this causing goals in the NHL, and I've posted videos about that in the past. It's a game changer in terms of not making this get soft over time. So if you buy a U set, it will definitely last longer in that sense. But I don't think the performance benefits are really that amazing when you do different strapping things. You can kind of mimic that feeling, but I'm not a huge fan of it. But this, maybe with this pad being the right size and being the right shape for me, I will like it more than what I've liked in the past. But like I said, I saw a lot of people talk about there's a hype and crazy how great this set is, and especially the pads, and I'm kind of like, I don't see what the huge difference on this is compared to the other ones. Small strapping changes, small like changes on this, and now a different boot shape, but doesn't make it really crazy innovative or really game changing. It's all kind of small tweaks, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, because I think these pads were pretty solid to begin with. I shouldn't say that. They are really solid to begin with, and like me, these extra stiff ones are going to be awesome for me. But there's people like saying there's a lot of hype behind this. I'm not really sure where it comes from, because like they're solid. It's just it's small changes, not big innovations or anything like that. So, but anyways, excited to see how these play on ice. Excited to see if the sliding has, I think, gotten any better, because a few pads have definitely surpassed Bauer in terms of sliding material. But based on me feeling this right now, it's going to be the same as the last few ones. So not the greatest, but still pretty solid overall. So next we're going to jump into the blocker, and this is straight up Hyperlite blocker. Or Hyperlite 2 blocker, I should say. I didn't get anything custom done on this besides the graphics. And it almost feels like they did move the hand position on this compared to the 2X Pro that I had down a bit, just because when I put it on, it definitely feels like my fingers, you can see how far this goes out here, and my fingers are basically at the tip. They're not past it, but they're at like the tip. So interesting that I think they kind of did move this a bit. And I've been seeing some NHL goalies wearing like this shape of a blocker and seeing how it almost looks like it's lower in their hand. So I really think that this is closer to a two-piece Hyperlite blocker now. I have a two-piece Hyperlite. I'll talk about it in the full review. But interesting that has changed, because originally these were way too close to the Supreme family, and like wearing them and stuff felt very similar, besides like this blocker shape and everything and the kind of the weight differences on it. So curious to see and how that plays overall. One thing that really sucks on this glove, and I don't understand why Bauer did it, is this cuff. It is so like restrictive. Like I cannot go 90 degrees here at all. It just totally gets in the way. And this entire cuff, which I love that it's Aerolite, but this entire cuff is just like, it just gets in the way. I'm probably going to cut this piece off so I can get to flex, because as you can see, it just totally gets in the way, and like this piece just doesn't move. That doesn't really feel like it's totally the part doing it though. It might be up here too, but there's no reason for this blocker, like this piece, to get that much in the way. This is excellent, and they did an awesome job of having the soft side out here and the sticky side here. But even this at like the loosest setting this still gets in the way. And then tighter, this is still the restraining part. So it's kind of like frustrating and annoying that Bauer went like cuffless with this, because it did in the mock, and the mock was really good. But this should bloom out more so you can actually move it more, because this is pretty bad, honestly, design in terms of like it getting in the way and everything too. So other parts on this, you obviously still have that super stiff piece right here, the sidewall, which Bauer has been really good at. You also have this really tiny pillow that basically doesn't do anything, and it almost feels like they forgot to put the padding in this, to be totally honest. It's so thin that it's like, what is this? Why is this here? There's like no padding in here whatsoever. So interesting there. Let me know if yours has padding here, because from what I recall, Bauer gloves, this used to be like a thick foam, so maybe they just made that smaller, but kind of weird in that sense. Fingertip protection is also a lot shorter than what it used to be, but it still covers pretty well, as you can see when it closes down, because of how molded this is and how this is attached, which is on the fingers right there. The adjustability is right here, so you can adjust it that way. So the padding on the top of the fingers feels kind of weird because it doesn't really feel like it exists down here, but it does feel like it exists up here where this sewn piece is. So maybe it kind of is integrated in that. It definitely is noticeable up here because this sewn piece is on the side, so you can definitely feel it on the top of here. So I'm not sure what's going on with that. The palm itself is that super tight, all spandex kind of backhand palm, which feels really good, and like it feels really good on the palm, and it feels nice and tight, but it also flexes, which is also a nice bonus. You can see the nice thick pillow here, which is honestly, this feels thicker than previous pillows I've used in Bauer gloves, so I'm looking forward to that. So see if I can feel shots through it. The other thing I mentioned, there's no pour on, but they have this DCT, which is their defense cloud technology, and this is like a nice thick squishy foam, as you can see here, but it's not pour on. So Bauer removed itself basically from pour on in a bunch of materials where they have to pay companies licensing to use it and to pay them for the materials. So they got rid of that. And this is that DCT, and it is a soft cushiony foam there with some wear guards on here, which is always nice as well. There are some wear guards on this side as well. But interesting that pour-on's gone for cost-saving measures, and they went to DCT. We'll see how that performs. The other thing that's kind of interesting is they still have this in like finger protection. It goes right here, and it Velcros out. So you can see that, and that, as you can see where that was and how deep that was, pretty useless. So I'm gonna move it to see if it works better here, but I also use paddle wedges, so I don't totally need it all that much. But this positioning for it is really odd in the 2X Pro glove, and I feel like the Supreme glove does it way better. Like you can put it right there as well, which gives it a bit better, but then the sticky Velcro is kind of sticking out here, which I can already feel hitting my fingers. So weird. I don't understand why they keep doing this one right here. I do like how this points out, but that should be like somewhere else. I feel like it should be kind of right here. So odd that it's there. We'll see how it works in the full review, but I mean, it is there, and I'm probably going to take it out to begin with. Now onto the catching glove. This is straight up a Bauer Vapor, just Hyperlite 2. So this is not the Vapor 90 that everyone is talking about. It's just the straight up Hyperlite 2 one, and it's interesting. Now obviously custom graphics. Feels really beefy basically here, which is really nice. You can see that soft foam, but it's still pretty dense right there and right here. So I'm interested to see how the beef on this glove is, because as you can see, it doesn't close and open the most amazing, but it is a Pro Palm that hasn't really been used yet. But this feels all really beefy and really protective. So very interested to see how well this does. My old Ultrasonic was one of my favorite gloves ever, and protection on it was really solid. And once you broke it in a bit, it closed really well. This also has a double like stiff tee. You can see kind of the bump here and here. So this is a thicker tee than normal. So that's reinforced as well, so you don't get that folding over and stuff like that. So very interested to see how the protection is on this, because again, no more pour on. That DCT is in this as well, but it feels really good. And the closure is obviously that 590 and 60-degree closure. Speaking of something some other companies are moving away from, this is so stiff. This whole piece here is so stiff. It's awesome to see, where like companies like CCM have removed plastics. This is so stiff and awesome. So awesome to see that there. You do have the stretch piece right here, and the backhand cuff is pretty similar to other Bauer gloves, and you still have that molded materials in here. Nothing crazy here. And we open it up, and you can see it does have that inner liner just like that mock glove, and I think I went with the stock settings on this, but it has a sure grip piece right here and sure grip in here too. Hopefully that gray comes off on camera for it, because this is kind of hard to get at. You could open this up, and well, I guess you can see it better in here. There you go, that sure grip right there, which again isn't as good as the true ones, but honestly it feels pretty nice. And these little black lines, which hopefully you can see, is that like almost silicone / rubbery grip pieces in there, and feel like your hand really holds your hand in place and kind of molds your hand pretty well. So interesting that that is there. And then you do have another adjustment piece right here as well, so that is for those lower fingers, and this piece is always kind of stuck on here, which is kind of annoying to me just because it doesn't really allow you to open this up, but this doesn't open up that far either, so it's kind of stuck right here, as you can see. And there's this tie piece, but you can loosen that up a little bit, but that part is stuck right there, so you can't really see in here for the finger stalls or anything, but they're in there. The interesting thing about this glove, or I should say the part that I don't really like that much about this glove, is it does have finger stalls, which I kind of showed off. And I'll try to get that on camera again. Well, you can't really see it, but there are finger stalls in there. So there's one there, there's like one there, and then there isn't one right here. So this one right here it has a loop, a really soft loop for my pinky, and it honestly feels like it's spandex almost. So whenever I go like this, I feel my pinky moving on it. I really wish it was Gen Pro, kind of sticking out the side like a more traditional glove, but it's like a nice, it's an okay thing, but I wish it was different. Same with the thumb. The thumb is kind of the same thing. It has that grip texture on it that's on there. I showed you the like silicone looking thing, and it does feel like stretchy. So it feels like it's like this material basically, which is like this spandex nylon material. And it feels comfortable, but it doesn't feel like it grips as much as I'd like. So I really wish it did have that Gen Pro piece sticking out here so I could yank on it, but this glove unfortunately doesn't have that. They're trying to be kind of a newer style of feeling, so that is there, and it wasn't an option for me to get and to update that. So I'm gonna do this up really quickly just to have everything in there. And the interesting thing is I can keep this glove really loose and it feels pretty good on there, where a bunch of gloves I've recently had to tighten. It does also have this quick strap right there as well. So that's about the quick unboxing of this video. It obviously wasn't that quick as a 22-minute video, but it goes over everything of the blocker glove and pads as well. So we take a look at that really quickly and see how they are. I'm going to do a full review of this whole set, do all the tests with it, with the puck machine and everything like that. But I wanted to get this video out there before it was all marked up, so it looks nice and fresh. Thank you very much for watching this video. Hopefully it was helpful. Remember to subscribe to me on YouTube, follow me on Instagram and TikTok. Links are in the description. If this video was helpful, please let the companies like Bauer and Bauer Goalie know, hey, Hockey Reviews video of your gear was really helpful. We'd love to see more stuff of him using your gear in the future. It'd be greatly appreciated. And let them know that my content helps you make purchases and make gear decisions. Also, this video wasn't possible without Just Hockey, so check them out in the description to their Instagram and their page. Support them, buy something from them, whether it be hockey related or just anything through their store. Let them know you came from Hockey Reviews, and it would be greatly appreciated because this video wouldn't have been possible to do without them. Thank you very much for watching, and take it easy.
You're watching HockeyReviews.ca.